The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
If the Republican Senate candidates get scared that Trump is dragging them down,
one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water,
will they continue to cling to him if he's potentially plummeting to the bottom of the ocean?
I will go down with this ship.
Surrounded by water, big water, ocean water.
What is your understanding of why Republicans are doing this?
I think it's that same genetic impulse that pulls the lemmings over the cliff, one after the other.
I know I left too much mess and destruction to come back again.
Are you proud of your support for President Trump?
But if I didn't say it,
Senator, the question was, are you proud of your support for President Trump?
I'm proud to be fighting for Arizona every single day.
Is that a yes or a no?
I promise I'm not trying to make your life harder.
11 hours to vote. Let's use plain English and call it what it is. Voter suppression.
I will go down with this ship.
And then we get conspiracy theories and we get lies. Where is the line? When are you guys going to say enough?
you have to take the children away. Very fine people.
This Stormy Daniels deal.
That call was perfect.
A bunch of suckers.
You still stand there silent.
I'll let it pass and hold my tongue.
Senator McConnell, was what the president did last night the right thing to do? You don't have any comment on what happened at the White House last night? Was it an abuse of power?
Yes, I did vote to repeal the ACA.
If you're a young African American, you can go anywhere in this state. You just need to be conservative, not liberal.
It's certainly going to be very difficult. I'm very concerned.
You need to help me.
Are you ready? Hello, everybody. It's Jeff. Good to see everybody. Well, today it was a mixed day here for weather. I mean, first we had some cloudiness, and then it got remarkably clear all of a sudden, and then it started to cloud in again. It's like 39 degrees, but it feels a little bit colder than that. But it's it's seasonable. I guess the way that it should be. I don't know. I mean, I think it might have gotten colder, at this time of year in the past. But I think because of global warming, I think that the temperatures have been kind of mild up to this point. I think so. It's okay for me because I don't like terribly cold weather, just like I don't like terribly hot weather either. So, I guess was it today or yesterday? Germany got a sort of a deja vu of things gone by, but a reminder that it's still not that long ago, and I'm talking about the Reichstag fire that happened, during the 1930s and stuff, when Hitler was around trying to seize control of Germany. Well, They had a sort of a replay of that yesterday, and there was a group of people who tried to overthrow Germany's government with violence. They did not succeed, and so I want to read this article here that'll get into a little bit more detail than I can possibly remember here in my own head. Okay, so this is from The Guardian. And it's, okay, the title, okay, it's by Philip Alterman, who was in Berlin, wrote this article, and you published it today. Germany assesses credibility of right-wing coup plot amid further arrests. Okay. Number of suspects revised upwards to 52, 23 of whom are currently in custody, and more police raids are planned. Germany is trying to get the measure of how imminent a threat to the state was posed by the right-wing terror ring exposed on yesterday, as police made further arrests in connection with the coup plot. In their biggest ever raid targeting right-wing extremists, German authorities arrested 25 people suspected of plotting to overthrow the government, install a shadow regime led by a 71-year-old aristocrat, and seek talks with Russia to renegotiate its post-Second World War settlement. The head of Germany's Federal Criminal Police, Holger Munch, on Thursday revised the number of suspects upward to 52, of whom 23 were currently in custody, adding that further raids and arrests were expected in the coming days. In the 24 hours since Wednesday's dawn raids, more details have emerged of how the group's quote-unquote council wanted to run the Federal Republic as a, quote, German principality, unquote, after its violent coup. The minor aristocrat, Henrik XIII, Prince Rule, was to become head of state, with an obscure corporate lawyer from Hanover to become foreign minister and family doctor from a village in Lower Saxony to run the health ministry. Whether the group really had the capacity to turn its power fantasies into reality, however, has been hotly debated. Henrik XIII's tweety appearance during his arrest has made it easy to make jokes about old men with delusions of grandeur. The left-leaning newspaper Taz, known for its wry front pages, merely printed a picture of Henrik XIII's arrest above the headline, quote, German President Steinmeier still in office, unquote. In the popular Maischberger talk show on Wednesday night, the TV presenter Mickey Beisenschers jokingly speculated whether Henry XIII used the same stylus as Alexander Gauland, the Anglophile former co-leader of the far-right alternative Für Deutschland, AfD, even when he tried to take the story seriously. Beisenherz struggled, quote, if I read the news at the moment, then I'm quite glad the army doesn't have any ammunition left, unquote, he quipped. Talking up the farcical characteristics of the wannabe coup leaders was also in the interests of the AfD. However, whose former member of parliament and active judge Birgit Malask-Winkman, the plotters had designated as Germany's future justice minister, quote, a coup with 50 pensioners, unquote, tweeted far-right MP Peter Bystrom, quote, they've struggled to take over the town hall of San Marino, unquote. The Left Party delegate Martina Renner, a specialist on far-right terror, criticized the fact that police had apparently informed selected members of the press in advance of Wednesday's raid to ensure maximum coverage. Quote, the infos had been leaked so widely that it came across as a PR job, unquote, Renner said. The head of Germany's domestic intelligence, the Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution, said that while Wednesday's raids had been preventative, the group's plans for a bloody coup attempt had been serious. Quote, overall, Germany's security agencies were in control of the situation at all times, unquote, said Thomas Haldenwang, Quote, but if it had been up to this group, then the threat was already quite real, unquote. In a video uploaded on 27 November, one of the plotters had spoken of an, quote, epical upheaval, unquote, that would take place, quote, in the coming weeks, hopefully before Christmas, unquote. The group's plans had recently become more concrete, and they had begun to acquire weapons, Halden Wong added. Quote, the affinity to weapons is very high. There are legal and illegal weapons, unquote. Munch said weapons had been seized in 50 out of the 150 properties searched, but declined to specify what kind of arsenal his investigators had discovered. Amid the smirking about cravated aristocrats, some of the plotters links to the military have raised genuine alarm bells. The man whom prosecutors described as the head of the group's quote-unquote military arm, Rudiger von Pescator, had once been a commander at Paratrooper Battalion 251, the elite fighting force that was later submerged into the Special Operations Forces Command, KSK. One other suspect arrested on Wednesday was at that point still a sergeant tasked with logistics at the KSK, leading to a raid on his office at the Special Forces Barracks in the southwestern town of Kaul. A spokesperson for the Defense Ministry on Wednesday did not clarify whether the man's position in the military unit allowed him access to munitions depot. The KSK has been the source of a steady stream of far-right scandals in recent years, leading to calls for it to be disbanded. In 2020, a KSK company was dissolved after police seized weapons and ammunition during a raid on the property of one of its soldiers in the eastern state of Saxony. In 2020, Germany's defense ministry confirmed reports that 60,000 rounds of ammunition had gone missing from its stocks over the previous 10 years. Even if the group of plotters around Heinrich the 13th would in all likelihood have failed to pull off their fantasies of toppling Germany's democratic order, the risk of serious bloodshed was credible. In the former Member of Parliament Milsak Winkman, they allegedly had a co-conspirator who would have been familiar with the security arrangements of the Bundestag and retained an access pass for former MPs. Quote, a coup d'etat may be very unlikely, unquote, said Miro Dietrich, an expert in right-wing extremism, in an interview with newspaper Die Zeit. Quote, but since the network very likely had access to guns, it is at least realistic to assume a serious threat to human lives. There would certainly have been deaths, unquote. So, it seems like they have the same problem over there in Germany that we got going on right here in the United States. And, you know, it's, I just, you know, I feel like, is this a global thing going on here, you know, with people in our country working with the people in Germany, you know, all at the same goal? It's like, you know, if these people hate foreigners so much, then why are these people working together, you know, to do the same thing? You know, I don't know. It's weird. But at the same time, this other article here from Newsweek had come out today, and I want to read this one, and it's written by Brendan Cole, entitled How Germany's Far-Right Coup Plot is Linked to Russia. More than 3,000 police carried out dawn raids in Germany on Wednesday, arresting 25 people suspected of being members of a network led by 71-year-old aristocrat referred to as Prince Henrik the 13th. The authorities said the plotters plan to make him leader of a new government. He's accused of contacting Russian representatives in both Russia and Germany in the hope of winning support for his plot. The group subscribes to conspiracy theories consisting of, quote, consisting of narratives of the so-called Reichsbürger and QAnon ideologies, unquote, according to a media statement from the German prosecutor's office. The Reichsbürger movement rejects the legitimacy of the modern German state and insists it should exist according to its borders in place before World War II. The group, whose plot began no later than November 2021, is, quote, firmly convinced that Germany is currently governed by members of a so-called deep state, unquote, prosecutors said. The group believes that its liberation promises the intervention from the, quote-unquote, alliance, which consists of a, quote, secret society of governments, intelligence services, and militaries of different states, unquote, that include Russia as well as the United States. It planned to form an interim military government to negotiate the new state order in Germany, and, quote, the main contact for these negotiations is currently the Russian Federation, unquote. German prosecutors also said that among those arrested was one Russian woman whose name was only given as Vitalia B., in keeping with Germany's strict privacy laws. She was detained on suspicion of facilitating attempts to make contact between a terrorist cell and Russian officials, although there were, quote, no indications, unquote, this had succeeded. Jacob Gould, senior manager in policy and research at the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, ISD, a London-based think tank that researches extremism, told Newsweek that the more traditional extreme right in Germany, such as neo-Nazis and the identitarian movement, are split on their support for Russia. Quote, but among conspiracy theory adherents such as Reichsberger and QAnon, they are very pro-Russia, so it is not that strange that these people specifically, who are part of this group, would have sympathy for Moscow, unquote, he said. A former member of the German parliament was also among the group. Birgit Malsack-Winkermann was a parliamentary deputy for the far-right Alternative für Deutschland, AfD, until 2021. Gould said that there are wings within the AfD that support Vladimir Putin, quote, as a strong Christian traditional ruler who is standing up to liberalism, unquote. Although opinion within the party towards his invasion of Ukraine is divided, the AfD's co-leaders Tino Trapala and Alice Weidel have condemned the reported plot. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the arrests were, quote, an internal problem of Germany, unquote, adding that they have stated that, quote, there can be no discussion of any kind of Russian involvement, unquote. Meanwhile, the Russian embassy in Berlin denied maintaining links to far-right terror groups in Germany in a statement that was carried by Russian news agencies. When contacted for comment, a spokesperson for the German prosecutor's office referred Newsweek to its statement on Wednesday, adding that, quote, we cannot provide you with further information, unquote. Well, I imagine Russia would probably be, trying to run from this because, hey, wasn't one of the reasons that they went after Ukraine about getting rid of Nazism, right? And here it looks like they've been caught dealing with pro-Nazi-ish type people right here in Germany, or right in Germany. And there's links to QAnon, which is here in the United States. So yeah, it does sound more like some kind of a cabal here going around the planet here of people with this fucking, what do they call it? What do they call Puritist movement or whatever? They just don't want immigrants in their country, okay? And they want to overthrow the governments in order to get their way, just like they tried to do here on January the 6th, okay? But in Germany, they have preventative laws to seek out these people if they feel like there's something amok. I mean, because Germany after World War II, I mean, they had to create laws to tighten security of their country. They didn't want to have another problem like a Hitler coming to the forefront again to do what happened, so many years ago. So they created laws to allow the government to take preemptive measures in order to stop problems before they become problems. Okay, we haven't done that here in so much, but because that would mean that open the door to, you know, what do they call it? You know, people that just going around looking for trouble that ain't there, you know, or something, giving them, you know, the police more to, you know, pick who they want to, you know, to be criminals or something. I can't remember the word they use it, but that would just open the door to problems in law here if we allowed the law enforcement to just simply deem something a problem and then go and enforce to stop it before, you know, because, you know, it would cross, you know, civil liberty lines and stuff like that we have in place here, okay? And so in Germany, they don't have that. So if they feel like they have a problem somewhere and they suspect certain people of being part of it, they'll go after them, okay? And so, you know, it's done swift. And I think, and I believe other countries do the same thing. So with this here, you know, I have a problem with the issue that, you know, QAnon, because we have QAnon here in the United States, and apparently they got QAnon in Germany, and QAnon members have been picked up, okay, in Germany, doesn't that mean the United States has to also get involved in gathering up as many QAnon members too? Because in the spirit of cooperation with international, you know, with our peace treaties and everything that we got in place, I mean, shouldn't it mean that, you know, the United States also needs to take steps if another country is deeming a certain group to be in trouble? Shouldn't we also gather them up, at least for questioning, to find out, you know, if they were in any way possible connected to what's going on in Germany? Because if they are, then I say these people should be deported to Germany or something to face, you know, justice, okay? Because they were deliberately interfering with their government over there. And Russia, obviously, I mean, but since right now Russia and the rest of the world are at odds, Russia is not gonna hand over any of its people that might be QAnon believers and shit like that, conspiracy nuts. But you know, in a perfect world, they would too, right? So I say, look, if anybody in this country is responsible for trying to plot a scheme to overturn a government that's a member of NATO, okay, they should also be rounded up, no matter what country they're living in, okay, and held to the same fire that the others are. And I think that the QAnon members in the United States ought to be at least picked up and questioned, at the very least, to cooperate with Germany, because it's their country that was attacked, or was going to be attacked. They had to at least show that the United States is with them on trying to protect their government, okay? Because we would expect that from them, right? If somebody from Germany was deliberately creating a movement over here to topple our government, wouldn't we want them to you know, answer to our justice here? I mean, look, we can't get people from Russia for interfering with our election in 2016, okay? Simply because they ain't going to admit it, right? But we have evidence that shows that they were involved, okay, with getting Trump assistance in his run. So, you know, there's still to be, you know, justice given there from people in Russia who were screwing around with our elections. So, you know, like I said, this is where I'm at. It's like, you know, look, if they're having problems over there with QAnon, then it's a problem here. We already know that they got involved with the January 6th attack on our capital. That's bad enough. And then to find out that they're also helping to plot schemes in another country. Hey, come on, if there's any more reason to pick these people up and bring them to justice, you know, I don't know what it is, but they certainly have done enough already to show that, you know, that QAnon outfit needs to be dissolved, okay? It needs to be taken down. Okay, we can't just allow them to continue because we blocked ourselves using laws from preventing a problem here. Preventative measures are good if used properly. We should have them, you know, and in this kind of world we're living in now, where threats are around every fucking corner. We just can't assume that, you know, because we're in the United States, we have safe and security. No, we're not safe and secure here. Okay, things are happening in the shadows of our government that, you know, are really dangerous, and we really need to, you know, get a big spotlight on that shit to get them out. You know, bring them out into the open so they can answer to the music. Okay, so let's go to a commercial break. We'll be back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me. This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Red county's blue.
If they win, I should.
Crucial victory for President Biden.
Democrats now have control of the United States Senate.
That's a terrible night for Republicans.
The Republican Party needs to do a really deep introspection look in the mirror right now.
I never expected that we were going to turn these red counties blue.
If they win, I should get all the credit, and if they lose, I should not be blamed at all. Donald Trump didn't change the Republican Party, he revealed it.
I don't believe we're in elections right now that are about right versus left or Democrat versus Republican.
There's no saving this party.
It's a pro-democracy coalition against this authoritarian movement.
The whole idea is like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's all these people do all day.
The MAGA mandate doesn't require governing. It's never been about that.
They yell fire in a crowded theater the size of the United States of America.
The MAGA mandate has been about democracy denying, about undermining our elections and institutions, about sowing division, chaos.
What we've been doing for a long time is splitting off small amounts of Trump's vote. We call it the Bannon line.
Those people who were once part of your GOP base, they don't recognize that.
There's a crack in the Republican base.
That's not who they are anymore.
This year, the Bannon line expanded not from 3 to 8%, but from 7 to 11%.
At the start of this thing, we identified 3 existential threats to democracy.
The governor's races in Michigan, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania.
Well, they're busy looking at our head fake with a couple of ads getting into Ron DeSantis' cage. We were whacking them from the other side, and that's exactly what we did.
We are an iceberg. On the tip of the iceberg, you see the cool viral ad. And you think that's all we do. We are crafty motherfuckers.
We're not trying to save the Republican Party. We're trying to burn the Republican Party to the ground.
My mom is Kellyanne Conway. She works for Donald Trump.
These children are handed over to HHS so that they can be put into facilities.
I think my mom is like a sociopath.
And this is going to sound harsh, but it sounds like you're holding these kids hostage.
My dad physically abused me a lot right here in this very room. My mom, same thing with my mom. You know, she's very, very physically abusive. Very, very, very abusive. I figured I had to come on here and talk about this because this is like insane.
The most traumatic thing to do to a kid? Separate them from their parents once they've made that traumatic journey.
I have all these issues because of my parents and what they did to me.
When you're separating kids on the border, Kellyanne,
No. Don't go back to that every time you... And like, my life has been up ever since. My mental health is at an all-time low right now.
And if people really cared about them, we would figure out a way to get the funding to expand the centers.
People like this shouldn't be allowed to have kids. They shouldn't be allowed to be one of the most powerful women in the world.
Are the kids who are crying on the tape, are they the ones that caused your problem?
How dare he? I don't have a problem. This
You've got a
country
big
has
problem
a problem
with this policy.
My mom should have never had her position in the first place.
How dare you try to
How
say
dare I
this
what?
about
State facts?
Senator?
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. So, we go to Iran, where the protesting out there is getting nasty. Okay, if you recall, the protests began out there in September when a 22-year-old woman, Mahsa Amini, was arrested for improperly wearing her headscarf, and then she was apparently beaten into a coma by the Iran's morality police. And in the days after her death, women nationwide defied the legally imposed dress code and ripped off their hijabs. So this article here is explaining what they're doing to these women now. This is from The Guardian and written by Depa Parent, and that's from, they got this from The Guardian. Okay. Iranian forces shooting at faces and genitals of female protesters, medics are saying. Iranian security forces are targeting women at anti-regime protests with shotgun fire to their faces, breasts, and genitals, according to interviews with medics across the country. Doctors and nurses treating demonstrators in secret to avoid arrest said they first observed the practice after noticing that women often arrived with different wounds to men who more commonly had shotgun pellets in their legs, buttocks, and backs. While an internet blackout has hidden much of the bloody crackdown on protesters, photos provided by medics to The Guardian showed devastating wounds all over their bodies from so-called birdshot pellets, which security forces have fired on people at close range. Some of the photos showed people with dozens of tiny, quote-unquote, shot balls lodged deep into their flesh. The Guardian has spoken to 10 medical professionals who warned about the seriousness of the injuries. They could leave hundreds of young Iranians with permanent damage. Shots to the eyes of women, men, and children were particularly common, they said. One physician from the central Isfahan province said he believed that the authorities were targeting men and women in different ways, quote, because they wanted to destroy the beauty of these women, unquote. Quote, I treated a woman in her early 20s who was shot in her genitals by 2 pellets. 10 other pellets were lodged in her inner thigh. These 10 pellets were easily removed, but those 2 pellets were a challenge because they were wedged in between her urethra and vaginal opening, unquote. The physician said, quote, there was a serious risk of vaginal infection, so I asked her to go to a trusted gynecologist. She said she was protesting when a group of about 10 security agents circled around and shot her in her genitals and thighs, unquote. Traumatized by his experience, the physician, who like all medical professionals cited in this article, spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of reprisals, said he had a hard time dealing with the stress and pain he witnessed. Quote, she could have been my own daughter, unquote. Some of the other medical professionals accused security forces, including the feared pro-regime Basij militia, of ignoring riot control practices such as firing weapons at feet and legs to avoid damaging vital organs. One doctor from Karaj, a city near Tehran, said security forces, quote, shoot at the faces and private body parts of women because they have an inferiority complex, and they want to get rid of their sexual complexes by hurting these young people, unquote. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs was approached to comment on the allegations made by the medics, but has yet to respond. Activists say such horrific gender-based violence is no surprise given the misogynistic rule of Iran's Ayatollahs, who took power in the 1979 revolution and have maintained control with brute force, often against women. It was the death in September of a 22-year-old woman, Masha Amit, that ignited the bloodiest challenge to the hardline theocratic rule of the country's clerics. And they got a map here showing the degree of where the demonstrations are. It's pretty much all over the country of Iran. You know, the smaller the town, the smaller the circle, the bigger the town, the bigger the circle. So obviously it's by population. So I guess you can say they said there were more than 460 protests in just one day in September on the 16th. So, I mean, that's a lot. Let's see. Tehran has repeatedly blamed foreign enemies for the unrest and accused quote-unquote terrorists of killing dozens of security force members. That conflicts with statements from the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, which said more than 300 people had been killed so far in the crackdown, including more than 40 children. And while the UN Human Rights Council has adopted the resolution to create a fact-finding mission to investigate alleged human rights violations, investigators are unlikely to be admitted to the country. Part of Tehran's campaign of intimidation has included threats to doctors who treat the wounded. Facing such dangerous conditions, a doctor from Mazandaran said she was removing pellets, which are sometimes metal and sometimes plastic, with the lights off to avoid detection. Quote, the women are so ashamed to go to the hospital that many are treated at home, and that's very dangerous, unquote, the doctor said. On October the 26th, hundreds of medics protested outside the Medical Council of Iran and were shot with pellet guns by security forces. A surgeon from Tehran treated his colleagues who were shot in their backs and legs while running away. The surgeon said he treated serious injuries of at least 5 protesters who were shot at close range by pellet guns. One of the injured people I treated wasn't even protesting. He was a bystander and thought he wouldn't be shot at. They're shooting blindly at everyone who's not one of them, unquote. Brian Kastner, a senior crisis advisor on arms and military operations at Amnesty International said the injuries shown in the photographs provided to The Guardian were broadly consistent, quote, with the use of birdshot, which is designed for hunting and has no place in any legitimate or lawful use of force by police, unquote. He said it would be hard to gauge from the photos alone what parts of the body were targeted or from what range because of the spraying nature of the birdshot pellets from shotguns. At least one photo showed what appeared to be a large single slug projectile, Kastner said, which is used for hunting big game such as deer. Quote, the person who was hit is very likely they were not hit in the chest or head and killed. There has been some evidence I have seen before of slug use, but this is a clear example, unquote. The Tehran surgeon said that one case referred to him was a 25-year-old bystander who was shot in the face on September 16th when the protests had just begun. Pellets have hit his eyes, head, and face. He is almost blinded in both eyes, and he can only detect light and brightness with them. He is not in a good condition, unquote. It is one of the hundreds of reports that have emerged of protesters losing their eyesight after being shot by pellets at close range. The Guardian has seen photos of people with pellets lodged in their eyes. One case that grew to national prominence was an attack on a student from the port city of Bandar Abbas, who was shot in her right eye. Ghazal Ranjesk shared on her Instagram profile that she was shot while on the way back from work. Quote, the last image that my right eye saw was the smile of the person shooting at me, unquote. She wrote in a post that has now been deleted after it was widely shared on protest groups and social media, creating a backlash. More than 400 ophthalmologists from Iran have signed a letter alerting Mahmoud Jabervan, the Secretary General of the Iranian Society of Ophthalmology, to what appears to be the deliberate blinding of protesters. One of the ophthalmologists who signed the letter said they had treated 4 patients who lost some or all of their eyesight, including one 20-year-old man whose x-ray showed 18 pellets in his face. Quote, I felt horrible, I felt so angry, and I had tears in my eyes looking at their pain. The eyes is the most sensitive part of the human body, and it is very painful to think about these injured people who are all young and have to live with this disability and low vision for the rest of their lives, unquote. He said, quote, I heard many similar cases from my colleagues, and the cases of eye damage in the recent protests are much more. It's more than 1,000 cases, unquote, he said, adding that they had yet to receive a response to the letter. The Guardian shared photos of eye and facial injuries sustained at the protests with Ian Hutchins, an oral and facial surgeon in the UK who founded the surgical research charity Saving Faces. Hutchins said the images showed, quote, people who have been shot at point-blank range using shotgun pellets shot directly into both eyes, leaving serious permanent visual damage or blindness, unquote. The nature of the injury, he suggested, quote, that they would have been held down or held still and not had the ability to move their head either way, unquote. Knowing that demonstrators will need medical treatment for such severe injuries, authorities have increased surveillance at hospitals. A doctor from a hospital in Shiraz said the new security guard had been stationed outside the emergency ophthalmology department late last month. Quote, he controlled whoever was entering and exiting the emergency ophthalmology department, and he asked to see our identity cards and tags each time. It was the first time I saw this happening in the hospital. It looked like this addition to the guards happened after an increasing number of protesters with eye injuries were admitted, unquote, said the doctor. In other parts of the country, particularly in the Kurdistan region where the government has blockaded whole cities, volunteers are having to smuggle in bandages and medicine on foot. Soren Mansourian, a Kurdish human rights activist who is part of a committee of doctors and has been coordinating with civilians to deliver medicines and treat wounded protesters, secretly said, quote, the number of wounded is very high. Every day we hear about the death of an injured person who did not go to the hospital out of fear of arrest, unquote. So what they're doing over there, I mean, I think, this is just my opinion, I think they like to use pellets, because before they, had that, they used to whip women all the time. Okay, remember that? They'd go around, they just whip the shit out of them and stuff, and they wouldn't try to kill them, but they'd beat them within an inch of their life. These pellet guns are the next best thing. Okay, they ain't whipping anymore because they're too lazy to swing a whip. So now they're using guns that have plastic or metal pellets, and they can shoot them at people, and in most cases they're not going to die from it unless you hit them someplace vital, but they're deliberately using them to cause scarring and pain and stuff, especially to women. I mean, it's because it's always women that are the reason why they do what they do over there. They blame women for all their bad behavior, these people, okay, these guys over there. To them, they think that women should hide their beauty, because if they don't, men are going to feel lust and everything, and they're afraid of that, okay, because they say that's the devil, or whatever they call the devil over there. So they think women are, minions of the devil, and they should be covered at all times. So to them, women are worse than mud, but they need them, right? You gotta have babies, right? Or otherwise you're. So women are less than snake piss over there, and so when women aren't obeying the rules, they're going to be treated harshly, just like the slave owners in this country used to whip the shit out of the slaves in this country back in the day. Okay, when they don't obey, there's punishment. Okay, that's the women over there are. They're nothing more than slaves to the men. Okay, they have to obey. So, and this is what they get in return for that. And it surprises the hell out of me that there's people in this country on the right wing who don't seem to care about what's going on over there with that. In fact, some of these people have come out in support of what Iran is doing. And I feel like, there's a line. Okay, people have a right to believe what they want in this country. Okay, that's fine. But if you're going to take that belief and use it to go around as an evangelist, okay, to try to sucker in people to your way of thinking, and create a movement in this country where you have an agenda to take these people at a certain point and use them to overthrow a government, your own government, or to turn them into weapons to go out and hurt people, okay, I think that is free speech. That's the same as crying fire in a theater, okay, when there's no fire, okay? I think that's the kind of free speech that shouldn't be free in this country. And if somebody is doing that, and we know who they are, when somebody does that, and it ends up leading all to a violent action, the person that started it has to be held accountable for it, and that's the reason what this Trump thing is all about here. That the man sitting in the highest office in this country broke the law, incited a coup in his own government, okay, and deliberately tried to get his vice president assassinated, along with Nancy Pelosi. Okay, I don't know if he. Or if it was them that, the QAnon or whoever that added her name to the list, but they deliberately looked for her, because we got video of them going into her office, trying to find out where she is, going through her laptops, and all that other stuff. Okay, and then they go into the chamber looking for her there. She wasn't there because they evacuated everybody. They were deliberately looking for people that, would have ended up in a worse situation. If they'd even gotten their hands on either Pence or Pelosi, okay, they would have had a hostage situation. And they would have been able to dictate whatever the hell they wanted, because they know the government would have tried to avoid either one of them getting killed. Okay? So, like I said, speech carries a response. Whatever you say, there's going to be a response to it. And if you're trying to create a response that you want with your speech, then, and that's a violent response, then you're responsible. Okay, you have to carry the blame for that, because you started it by things you were saying. And that's why, I say, Republicans, they never like the First Amendment. They love the Second Amendment. But when the Republicans are out there talking, screaming fire in a crowded theater, okay, and the government tells them they're not supposed to do that, then they go and say, well, First Amendment, First Amendment. Well, no, that's not the way it works, because even in First Amendment situation in free speech, you cannot regulate laws that say people can't respond like this or that. People are going to respond how they respond. You can't regulate emotions, okay? There's no law against that. You got a right to say what you want, but whatever happens as a result of that, hey, that's on you. You created that problem, okay? You can say what you want, but if somebody decides they don't like what you're saying and they shoot you, well, it's your fault. It wouldn't have happened if you'd have kept your mouth shut. So they leave it up to you as the citizen to decide how you want to play it. If you want to say it, fine. If you don't, fine. Okay, but the thing is that, the First Amendment is the First Amendment, all right? And nothing in there in that amendment says anything about protecting people from the responses they get to their speech, okay? Whoops. There's nothing in there that says anything like that. So I feel like, we see here in Germany where QAnon people over there have been stirring the pot in that country and getting some of that from Russia, while Russia right now is conducting an illegal war in Ukraine. And where we have this going on in the United States as well, I think it's good if our countries get together to root out this problem and eliminate it, okay? Because obviously their goals, QAnon's goals, are not peaceful here, okay? They're not just going out saying things to tell people about what they believe in or something like that, or just to gain members for, a Sunday afternoon picnic. Okay, these people have an agenda, and their agenda is about taking down governments and replacing them with dictatorships or whatever you want to call it, okay? Anytime when they talk about using the military to control a transition of power, that's a dictatorship, all right? They're trying to force something on us that we didn't vote for. So QAnon out there, because they got a lot of conspiracy theories, right? I don't know if you visited their webpage and stuff like that. But they believe in a lot of crazy crap, all right? So these people are out there. But if they're also on the side trying to get people motivated to do coups and stuff like that, then they've crossed the line now. Now they've crossed the line of just being a nuisance into being a threat. And our countries around the world deal with threats, okay, in various degrees. And they can't scream First Amendment in the United States if what they're doing is causing chaos and anarchy here at home, okay? They just can't do that. And we should be, ruthless in taking down people that are prone to doing this, preventative measures, as they call it. We really ought to, because we have to set an example so that way it stops this problem from spreading. That, we will come after you in force if we find out that you're trying to create, a coup or whatever, or trying to incite violence or to get people killed. Okay, we can't allow that to happen. We got laws against murder and that sort of thing, and that extends right into people causing problems that create murder and shit like that. You can't be against a murder if you don't stop it in all eventualities or something like that, So, anyway, that's it for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week here, upcoming weekend here, because today. Right now it's Thursday. So I hope everybody has a great weekend, and please keep yourself informed about COVID-19. I hear that ever since Thanksgiving, the number of cases of people getting it are kind of gone up some in the hospital. So remember, if you're going to be in groups out there in the holidays, to make sure, at least if everybody there has been given their shots or whatever, check it out, make sure it's okay, or just wear your mask. So do that, and please, let's try and be kind to one another. I know it seems like I'm pissing in the wind here by saying that, but we really need to try. Some of you out there I know are trying and succeeding, okay? Not everybody is a prick this time of the year, but, you know, for those of you that are, you know, cut the shit, okay? Let's be nice. It's a holiday season. It's supposed to be a peaceful season. Give us that much, okay, through this season, okay? You can always go back to doing the same old shit and risking the arrest and all that later, but for this time of the year, let's have a truce, okay? Hell, even in the Civil War, they used to have that. All right, so take care, everybody, and talk to you later.